Hi, I'm back from my trip. I'm excited to share some things with you. I've gotten a new hair color, by the way. See how it'll go. I'm used to being more blonde, but I am excited to just have it be less maintenance. So here it is. Yay! Maybe I will have my blonde come back through because it doesn't last forever. But we went on a cruise. If you didn't already see that, I went on a cruise with my family, and it was really an interesting experience being able to see the world as the world functions and parties and has fun, but also helping my kids see the world in all these different ways too. I mean, it's not all just drinking and partying on a cruise boat. It's talking with people. It's getting to know other cultures as we get off on the ports. So that was really fun. And my kids trying new foods. They tried snails and squid and lobster and other things that they just don't usually have. So that was really fun. And talking with them about it, answering their questions and what they're seeing, if they're concerned about something, if they're curious, and um, being able to um, be a mama bear as well. I had to sometimes do that. I'll talk maybe more about that. Um, and learning just how I should. My husband and I kind of did this talk on our way home. So we had a big long talk on our way home when we drove there, and just thinking about how what we just did it make us a better person or not? Did the boat make us better or worse? And that's kind of great. That's something great to always ask yourself. If you maybe gone through something and you need to kind of put a close on it, you need to think about what you just did and you're kind of not sure, is thinking about, did it make you better or worse? And really, and that helps you understand, oh, okay, well, if I have to choose one side, sometimes it might be in the middle. It didn't make you either, you just kind of were stagnant, but most of the time we've gone on one side or the other. So in that case, I feel like it almost made me a little worse. I really tried hard to keep my holy place here within myself. But then I also did not take up opportunities to always help and serve and get to know people. And that's what I regret. So I think about, okay, what do I regret? And I don't want to be a bummer on it. It was still a great trip. Um, but as the list of things I'll be talking about today, that's one of them. Is I was thinking a lot about how we are pretty busy with our families, and I did feel very strapped to them. I don't have babies though. I thought surely by this time, if I didn't have babies, I'd be more friendly with people around me and doing more things. And that's where I could tell I had a disconnect in my thinking, that it's it's maybe just a little more of an excuse that I'm not being as friendly and meeting people. Yes, my kids need attention and talking with them, and I have to keep my eye on them, and but I can make that effort to go and reach other people. Sometimes I was just not feeling it because, like I had mentioned, I was on the low part of my cycle, and I of the cycle of the month, and I could not necessarily do all the things, and I kind of thought to myself, like, this is our vacation. We're mainly here for them. I'm going to make the biggest difference by being with my kids. But I just feel like there is still a disconnect because if I keep that thinking in my life, then that means I'm not doing that same way as in my own community and with people I'm just at the store with, or just part of a meeting with at church or whatever. That I want my kids to see that I am friendly and that I get to know people, and that we can do more. We can try to look for that. And of course, the Spirit will give us um, the best uh, thinking on what that will look like and how much we should go out and reach out, even in just a small moments. And it does take energy out of us. I know for some of those people that are like me, these things take energy. I want to make sure I can give it out, but I have to have it, and I also have to save it for later. And so that was my one regret. I'm sometimes kind of tough on myself, so I also kind of felt the Spirit tell me, like, it's okay, just do a little bit better next time, be more friendly. I just kept seeing a couple of families on the boat that I didn't meet or talk to, and we would cross paths, and I just thought, you know what, there must be a reason that I see them a lot, and plus I keep feeling in my heart I should talk to these people, but then I'd write it off again with my thinking. So, that's just what's hard. We are complex beings. So, moving on though, I am glad I did it, and I jumped into normal life, and I had found out, as far as our lawn and our sprinklers go, I found out I can put down sod anytime, really, even in like the snow. Maybe not quite, you can't even really buy it, but I'm getting a great sense that I can probably put sod all over my lawn even this late into the winter. And I was really nervous about that because I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars and then have it die. These squares of, gold. Like, I love knowing I'm going to buy these pieces of grass and setting them down, and it's just instantaneous, beautiful lawn. So we're working on that. We got the sprinklers finished, but now we're working on leveling, and we had someone come yesterday to do a lot of tilling with their tractor. We didn't borrow a tractor this time or rent out a tractor this time. We had a guy come to help us and getting topsoil. I went and did some shopping for some other tools and landscape rakes to help. But that's kind of what's going on right now, and trying to catch up with everything. But some things that I didn't mention this part of what I did on the vacation as well. We went to Cabo San Lucas, and I had this impression that we were protected. I could feel something was a protection for us, because it was, from what I was hearing, out of all the 3 ports, the Cabo was more of the scary one to go to. Of course, they try to make these ports and areas that us, tourists come to more safe and looking nice. But there were some stories I was hearing from people, and I had the Spirit tell me, help me know that it's because of I believe wearing my garments, having that protection, that promise that we're given in the temple. So what had happened at Cabo is we went and saw Lover's Beach. We didn't get out. We just got to see it from a distance, and we got to see this arch. And it's just, Cabo's beautiful. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but maybe if you did, you would kind of recognize it, because it's kind of a picturesque, beautiful scene if you ever want to Google it. And it has these like rocks, these huge towering rocks that jet out of the ocean. That's a little bit off the land of the mainland. And it's at the very tip of the Baja Peninsula, the little peninsula that jets out from Mexico. And it's the very bottom, so I can imagine there's a lot going on there. A lot of things have to travel up and around that peninsula into that strip of water. I don't know what that's called, but to reach also the mainland of Mexico. So when we were there, I enjoyed seeing everything. We got to see fish, got to see turtles in the water. We got to go in this boat where there's some glass on the bottom that you can see underneath as you're going by all these fish. Got to see the arches of it. There's like this arch of those rocks kind of going up and over and connecting, and then Lover's Beach and Divorce Beach. And we didn't get off because we knew and we had heard that the waves were way too powerful. And of course you can go. It's just, I knowing my kids, they're going to want to explore. And if we really want the beach experience, we went to this other beach that was nicer. And so we had that fun look around, but we had to get to that point of getting a water taxi person to drive us around. And it took a lot of effort on the behalf of my husband. And he was just I was so grateful for him. He is amazing. And everyone has their talents. He has a talent combined with knowing Spanish. He has a talent of discussing things with people and getting what he needs, but in a way that's it's not rude, but he has to be assertive. He's a protector, and he's not a people pleaser, and he's not so trusting. So to a good degree, right? And so there's someone like me that's maybe a little more gullible, and I like to be kinder. I can't always say it. I can, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it was just so cool to see what he was doing. And we didn't book through the cruise line to have this excursion. When you get off the boat and go do the ports, go off onto the mainland for that day. They call them excursions. If you're going to do different little activities, like if you're going to go do an ATV adventure, if you're going to go horseback riding, like I talked about, or if you go just go on a tour, ride a boat around to different sites or on a bus. And we didn't book it through the cruise line because it is a lot more expensive, but they do guarantee that you get back on the boat. If anything happens, they will refund you. It's just more of a safe and guaranteed experience. We've done it before, but this time we didn't because we've been there, and Brady was like, I think I'm going to figure it out, and we're just going to find someone on when we get there that's just holding up their signs wanting to help people, give their business, and they have taxis, they have their boats, and they're part of a whole connection of other of these tourist attraction companies that make it happen by the local people making it happen. So that's what was really cool, is he just knew where to go and talk, but he had to talk to a lot of them, and there were so many. So that was one reason. One clue that was showing me there's something. I mean, these are more some semi more third world sometimes, depending on parts of Mexico, and only because I say that because then when we went to the beach, there were so many vendors there too. So at the actual port where Brady had finally discussed who he was going to use, after like 100 of them seemed like they wanted to talk to him and try to fight for their business with him. When we were at the beach, I kid you not, I had about every other minute someone come ask me, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? They'd show me their iguana. Look, he's so cute. And Brady's like, don't make eye contact. They're going to want your money. Do you want some necklaces? Do you want these shirts? They're just, can we braid your hair? My girl's hair, of course. Like, one thing I think I regret is not having them get their hair braided. It's just so fun to have them do that, I think. And they talked about it, but I also know my girls are a little bit finicky about their hair, of like, it's pulling. But so there were so many vendors, so it became not as relaxing sometimes because there were so many of them. And you look across the beach, they were dressed in white, and the people that were, and there were so many, and they were really, really, I feel like, in a desperate situation in order to sell, knowing that they are not going to have that many people buying. So my thought process is, if they're really knowing and using their time to try to sell, knowing that it's already over flooded with other people and other vendors, but they still choose to do it, that must mean they're desperate, and that there really are no other options in town, and just $10 for their day would make their day or something. I'd heard that it was pretty bad with drug cartels with Cabo San Lucas, and it just didn't feel right, like how much we just felt like we were a little more unsafe when watching our stuff. And the guys at the dock that my husband was trying to make deals with, we ended up finding someone that was great, and he worked it out with them. And he, of course, Brady being so good with people, had pulled their heartstrings a little bit, and he can get a pretty good discernment on a person, and I think that's what's really helpful. But he pulled their heartstrings, saying, see, my kids are here, get them home safe. Do you have kids? Like, really heart to heart, like, there's this karma, like, and so I think that might speak to them. But so it made me think it's maybe a little bit more third world country in Mexico, in that area right there. Not saying that all Mexico is, but and secondly, another thing that was scary is we had a couple of ladies that would sit by us a lot during dinners at night, and so we got to know them, and they were really sweet. But they said that was their worst port day, and that they did not feel safe, and they were not happy, and the people were talking bad about them, and they knew, and they kind of put some clues together. But then when they got to the dock, they wanted more money from them. They said, we won't let you through unless you get more money. Like, they said we had to pay because they wouldn't let us through. So that kind of mindset, it just shows these are people that are more in survival mode, and it's so scary and so sad that that's where they're at. And so I don't know how to. I'm not the one to fix it. I don't know what to say, and I think of how can I make that situation better with some of these people, but I can't. And I just, sometimes it just kills my heart to see those things, being the feeler that I am. And even just, I sometimes I just don't think, because there was an iguana. All of a sudden there was an iguana on the beach. And then I yell out to Brady, look at this iguana. Kids, come look, there's an iguana. And Brady's telling the kids and me, no, don't go look at it. And then I look a little further and there's a guy that owns the iguana. And he's also selling these little iguana little toys. And so part of us maybe going to pet and see the iguana and have him do his tricks, he would hope for the money. And I would be glad to give it. I can't do it all. And I was honestly so stressed in that sense and mad that they were asking me so many times. Not mad. I was just annoyed. Like I was over it. I don't want anything anymore. That I had already turned off my brain with any of the shopping. And but it's kind of cool to see that they even come up with ideas like that. And they would throw the iguana in the ocean like this. They just chuck him. I just saw him chuck him and he just swim back. And I told you that the waves were pretty powerful on those other beaches on the other side. When we got to this other beach, it was a little more closer in bay. The waves weren't as powerful, but they still were pretty powerful waves. And we still kept an eye on our kids, but I was surprised. He's just chucking this thing there in the ocean. Like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen to that animal? But he just swam back. But these are all fun adventures, but it did make me think, okay, what's really going on? Why would people trap people behind the gate, not let them go through to get onto their boat, knowing what kind of position they're in? Like, it's a really pretty spot, but it was kind of scary to see and hear even firsthand stories from those ladies. And she says they're going to go and do some more to tell them and let them know that that's not okay in their business. They took pictures of their boats and the different numbers and who the people were, and the company itself. But I'm for one that does not like to go and try to complain about things. I usually try to let it go, but sometimes it is good to do. So I am grateful that I have a husband and that is more assertive like that and has really helped us. And I was more free in that my thinking. Like I said I was a little bit nervous sometimes and a little annoyed, but I still was having a really fun time and just being more free. But my husband, as he told me behind the scenes, he was stressing out. He was just always on his guard. Like, I'm so grateful for him. He's such a good guy. But another thing I wanted to mention, as far as that assertiveness or not, I was proud of myself for being assertive. And I think we're coming to a time in these days where we got to step up in certain ways where it will be good, and using the Spirit on what will be best. And also having integrity for ourselves. So I had a good long think on it in this particular situation. And I just don't want people to walk on me, right? We're not to be doormats, and we are to be good for our families and protectors of our kids. But and this is just such a small experience, but it was so small, but it really taught me a lot. We were roaming around the 11th floor of the boat, and that's where you go eat. And that area is pretty busy, especially around those meal times. And so we were roaming around after we gotten some food. And the girls and we were in a room, just my two girls and I in one room, and then Brady and my son in another room, because they don't fit. The most you can fit in one room is 4. So we have 5 people. We had to get an extra room. It was kind of a bummer, but it's just what we had to do. So we had made it over to breakfast earlier, and breakfast is always really busy. And we gotten our food, and we can just not find a spot to sit anywhere. And we walked and walked and walked, and I thought at this point, okay, I'm just gonna have to find someone who is done and hurry and grab it right as they get up. And they're walking over there, and their dirty stuff is still there. I'm gonna have to flag someone down, stand there, and have flag someone down to come clean it, one of the workers. And so I did. I found this table, and I'm walking there, and I'm kind of ahead of step of this other lady that's kind of walking towards a table, seeing that same thing has happened. And it's me and my girls falling behind me, but I'm a little bit ahead of her. And I kind of get to the table just like a minute or a second or two before she does. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have this table. I didn't say it. I just kind of stand there like, I have this table. And my kids have food in hand ready to sit down, but she's just her own lady. And she had said, this is my table. And I know it wasn't her table. And I saw the other ladies walk that way, that it was their table. And so just matter of factly, I was like, I saw these other ladies, that was their table. This isn't your table. And then she's like, well, it is. Well, you can have it. And then she just kind of ran off. So I'm, and in those quick moments, I don't know if you're like me, in those quick moments, like, here's my fidget right now. In those quick moments, it feels like, oh, I don't want the conflict, but I was also proud of myself for standing into that moment of like, of what the truth was. It wasn't her table. And, I mean, to be honest, like, I have a couple of kids that need to finally sit down, and we have food in hand already ready to eat, and you don't. I didn't say that, but I'm just saying, like, and so she ran off, and I was just like, but then she ended up sitting in a table, like, right next to us after, because that table got up, and I was like, I just don't like, some people are just not very kind, and that's what's kind of hard about a cruise bus. It kind of puts everyone in more of, like, a animalistic mindset sometimes, with the crowds, with the food. Like, it doesn't always bring out the best in people, and sometimes I'd see that with certain things. I knew I wanted to be the best person I could be in what I can handle, and just not get worked up about things. These things don't matter. But the thing is, if I gave up my table, it actually would have mattered, because it would have, and to that lady, because I got to stand up for what's right. Like, at that moment, she was lying. And that's not okay. And I was right there, and it would have just, and I've had this happen before, where I regret when I don't say something after. And this happened before one time, and I'll share this story as a contrast of the both, because I have a lot to say today. Okay, you're gonna be in this for the long haul. There's a lot more to talk about, and it's really helping me be able to learn how to speak, share my testimony. It's important to share your testimony online. And helping me at some point knowing maybe I can further this talent of trying to share stories. But this story was a contrast to that, and this was kind of a pivotal moment for me, I guess, to realize I should have stood up for myself. So I've found different instances after this one happened of ways I do need to stand up for myself, because it is right and it's okay to do. And I don't think God wants us to be a doormat, especially for us mothers and people that are kind and people pleasing like I am sometimes. Lost my fidget. I don't think that's the way. And especially if things are going to get harder in the world as it is, we will need to have even more of a level head of what is kind and right and true. And it doesn't mean you just give it all. And we aren't to sacrifice ourselves. We aren't Christ, like, to do to that point, but we are to behave in such a way that is Christ-like, and not contentious, but still, like I said before, conflict is not always contention. There you go. Snap. So this instance that I had was when I went to a vet about a year ago. I think it was October or September of last year. And I took my dog to the vet, and he needed to be fixed. We had got to a point where he was having a lot of health problems, and it was coming to the point where he needed to be fixed. He was pretty much having like a period, but he's a boy dog. He should not be having a period. So that doesn't make sense, but it does, because his male parts of his body would bleed, and that was not okay. And it would go everywhere just because it was being rubbed, and he was doing his dog thing and being excitable, if you know what I'm talking about. And it got to the point where we tried different things and it wasn't working. And it's also just part of his breed. And so we decided, I'm just going to fix him. And it was sad because I wanted to breed him at some point. He was kind of an expensive dog, and I figured maybe I can off level some of that cost by breeding him, because he's a very handsome dog. He has the beautiful markings, like it's very balanced, beautiful mask. He's a bulldog. Bulldogs are more expensive, and they just, people love them. Like and they sell for a lot more than usual. And but I would not change a single decision on having him, because I am so grateful I have him, even though he was more expensive. And I just thought I'd have my hand at that. And having puppies, that would be so fun. And I thought I would get a second dog at some point, and we'd have a girl dog, and maybe it would just be that situation where I own both parents and we have some puppies sometimes. But I got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. And then I also thought maybe I'll put his semen on ice, but we did not do that either. And you have to pay like $20 per month in order to save it, because you can fix him and then still keep that, his sperm, for later. But it just, nope, I just had the feeling this isn't probably what I should get this deep into. It's just a hobby or thinking of wanting to do it. I'm not to that point. And a year ago, we had just barely signed on building this house. So this house wasn't even built. I wasn't even here yet. We don't have things figured out. So it's okay. If I still want to do it later on, we can do that when it comes. Anyway, with the vet himself, he was a passive aggressive person, and I was not knowing and understanding what was going on until after that whole experience. He was very passive aggressive towards me, and I feel bad that I did not stand up for myself. So as I was sitting in the room and he was giving me these last final thoughts of what we're going to do finally, since it's not working. And he's a vet that I don't always see, but he was one that was available, and I've seen some others. So I've kind of jumped around between a couple vets, because there's actually a shortage of vets in the world right now, because there's so many pets. People love their pets, and going to vet school is a lot of money, as he talked about, as some of his griping he did with me and unloading on me. And I didn't realize like what I was getting into, like as like he kept talking and talking. So I'd already decided, and I'd already gotten to this point where I was deciding I was going to fix my dog, right? And I think he really still wanted to prove this point to me, that it's not good to breed his breed, or it's not good to breed his breed, or even just many breeds. He just is so over this idea of people, just random people like me, wanting to breed. But the reality is, it's a free country. I could do whatever I want. He's my dog. I could do what I want. I'm actually a much better person, probably, compared to many other people that are just doing it for the money to do it. Like money. I would love to have some money, but it's for the hobby and the love of dogs, right? And I didn't need his opinion and unloading on me for a long time. And he seriously did, for about an hour and a half. And I had my girls in the room with me, and Emmett wasn't with me, but my two younger girls were there with me, and on the phones, because I just had nothing else to do, because he kept talking, and I was trying to figure out with him, with the dog, with Tank, my dog. And I usually would be more assertive. It's just he caught me in a time where I was actually really having a rough moment. It was during that time we were going to sign, and the adversary was on me and my husband to sign on for the house, and there was a lot of big emotions going on. We still felt like we should do it, and Brady was still, of course, it's not exactly what he wanted, but he was like, this is the best option. You need it. We want it. It's where we're gotten to. And there was just a lot of big emotions. I was probably on my period. I don't know. Like I was just really feeling a lot of feelings during that time. It was just an off couple of weeks or few weeks. And then to go, and I was feeling really tired. And so I thought to myself, okay, I have this last thing of the day to go to this appointment. And I did. And I'd already come, and the stress of my dog bleeding every other day all over our floor. Like it was becoming so hard. And that's why I knew I had to take action steps towards improving my situation and letting go of some of those things. And that's fixing my dog. I'm not going to be able to breed. That's okay. It's not worth my mental health. It's not worth the stress of my family. But for someone like him to, I was frustrated, but I have had forgiveness. He's obviously had gone through a lot, and he was unloading on me. I don't know why he felt like he needed to confide in me, but I just didn't have the willpower to say, you know what, I really gotta go. Look at my girls. I really don't appreciate you talking about this over and over again as if like I'm not listening to you. I understand you don't like breeding. I understand that you had a lot of medical bills, a lot of tuition bills with vet school. I understand you see a lot of bad things with the people and their dogs every day. I'm not the one to unload it on. I wasn't brave enough to do that at that point, but I'm getting better and better over time to know that, and thinking back on these experiences that build myself to that point, that I can do that. And really, but in the moment, in the conflict and kind of it's hard to think clearly. We're kind of cloudy in our brain. So I was really grateful that I had come out on the other side of it all, that I learned something, but it didn't end well. I came out of there crying. He didn't know that, but I finally was able to pull myself away and be done. And my husband was so mad. He's like, hey, who is this guy? I'm going to call him. I'm like, no, that's not going to help. Let's move forward. I've learned my lesson, that you got to stand up and realize like, that's not okay. And it was very unprofessional, honestly. And so I still needed to go to that clinic to get him fixed and do one more checkup or something. And I asked not to see that guy, of course. And I think someone had asked about him if I'd seen him before, and I told them, no, don't go see him. He wasn't a good vet. And so it's just those things. I'm going to leave it at that. But it was mainly me learning that I need to have enough integrity within myself to stand up for me. There's dignity for me to stand up for. And especially when I have kids involved, and especially when their people just want to unload and they don't care about who you are. They are just, I didn't get that sense that he was a bad guy and he didn't care about me. I still felt somewhat of a connection to him, but he just crossed the line. It was just too long. So that was a story that was very contrasted, very different from the other one, but I was proud of myself for standing up for that way. So whenever you need to stand up for yourself, you have that dignity to do that. And we can do it in such a way as Latter-day Saints that make it right and true. I really don't like the movement of the girl like power being rude and very loud and feminist. Like that's why I think I got to a fault with that, where I just did not want having anything to do with that. I wanted to be this nicer, nurturing person that's kind, and that's who I like myself to be the best. And of course, I can learn to love myself and understand and love that version of Laura that's also assertive and that takes a stand. And maybe for some of you that listen and know me, you'd be like, well, you are that kind of person. In a degree, but I'm not. I'm more of the nurturing, loving person. That's what I'm more known for. But it's not a matter of identities and putting myself in a box. It's us trying to cultivate these attributes that I think help us become more like our Heavenly Father. He's not a doormat. I don't think people walked on him or walk on him now. And plus, it's not helpful. And it's not helping that guy anyway either. It's just perpetuating this habit of his of doing that to his other clients. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Now, I want to switch gears. Oh. This helps me be able to talk with my fidget here. I had this amazing experience that I felt like just praising God. It was a beautiful experience being able to see that he protected me, and even just thinking about it makes me tear up, because it's true. I am even here today because I have been protected by something this past week. And it's even just the smallest instance of a deer almost hitting me. That happens a lot, right? If you're gonna live in the country and people, hit deer all the time, but this deer, it did hit me. It's just nothing happened. That's what was the miracle about it. Nothing happened. I hit it hit me. I don't know which was first, but it came from the side, and it was later at night, and I was in the miracle of it all too. And I think part of it is because I was in the middle of praying as it happened. I was in the car all by myself. I had just got some groceries, and it was right the day after we got back from our trip, and thinking about a lot of things and praying. And I needed to go over to Logan to get groceries, and it's about a half hour away. and thought I should take some time to pray. And actually, God is still very patient. I should use more time to pray. I did already say my prayer for that day in the morning, but I could have still used it as a longer time to pray, or have it be kind of my evening prayer. But my phone had died, so I had no choice but to listen to nothing or pray. And I didn't have a charger with me in my car. My charger wasn't working. So it was a beautiful experience of, amid just praying, this scary thing happens, and it was a huge loud boom, and it just came out to the side onto my van. And another scary thing about it was in this area on the highway that was narrow. It has to go between the two valleys, Box Elder Valley and Cache Valley, and there's this highway that's not very big, honestly, with how much people need to go back and forth between the two. But even within there, there's one stretch that's pretty narrow, and it's going over, I think it's because it's going over one of the river beds, and it's a little higher, but it's narrow, and then the deer just popped out, and it was so loud, it threw me off. I was scared. I was wondering what the heck just happened, because I was still going, I was still driving, and everything was fine. I glanced over to see if anything happened to the actual car. Nothing was broken or anything, and I knew I couldn't pull over yet because I was on that narrow strip of the highway, couldn't go get out and see. And in that split second after too, I made a quick look into the mirror and I saw there were deer behind me. But I am nervous and thinking maybe it hit someone else, because there were cars going around. It wasn't too busy, but there were more cars going around. And I just had this feeling that I was protected. And like I had said before with our garments and that level of protection, I felt the Spirit then affirm to me again, because of the covenants you're keeping, and that you're keeping me close, and you're being faithful to have your garment on every day, and that it's not just something you wear, it's something you're trying to live, that you are protected. And I just cried. I felt the Spirit tell me, even just that minute after it happened, that feeling of, you are protected, I love you, you are my beloved daughter, I am so proud of you, and you are trying hard, because I'm wanting to make that connection and relationship with him, and he protects me. And it just showed me right then and there I was okay, I was safe. And we had just done a bunch of driving too from California, and I'm just thinking of all this driving, all of these adventures we're taking right now. I've been protected, and my family's been protected. I would be amiss to not see the connection there. And of course, amiss if I then dismissed the Spirit telling me, and kind of, I don't hear it as a voice, I just have this feeling kind of enter my mind and my heart, that it's God's power protecting me, his influence, until I am finished on the earth. And it shows to me that God still has a lot more for me, and he trusts me to still take on whatever I still need to do in the world right now, with my family, with my kids, with my neighborhood, and my sphere of influence. And I'm just so grateful that he does protect me. And these covenants are both sides. And I just wanted to praise him as it happened. I just cried. I was like, thank you, God, for protecting me. I'm so glad I'm safe. I'm almost home, only 10 minutes away. You saved me. You kept me safe. And it's been the highlight of my week. I came home, and it was just such a weird feeling to come home and enter in. Everyone's doing their own thing. And it's sometimes after you see and experience those things that you can't ever unsee or unfeel again. And I just entered in, all my kids are doing what they are doing, and my husband too. And I just look at them like, they don't know what I just experienced. I want to share that with them. And I did, but it wasn't quite the same. And they were grateful I was safe. But I felt the air. And that's all I could do, is then share it here, share it with my family, and just praise God. There's no reason but to just praise him every day for the safety, for the love he gives us, for the blessings of this country, for the freedoms that we have, for our America. Sorry, it's a busy week with the elections. And things are going to be scary, probably. Not this week, but as time goes along. We're in a really crazy time right now with our country. And but we have no excuse but to praise God for our blessings of protection. And we are to then go forward and keep doing and even rise higher to become better and be better. And that it still keeps going. I've been on a wave lately, and it's been a beautiful wave that I've been able to ride right now. And that deer experience was part of that. And then I should end the story of telling you, as I did finally pull over when the narrow part of the highway stopped and I was able to pull over, I pull off to the side, and it was just part of this bumper piece of my van just had kind of snapped off, and it was just kind of, it was just like dangling there a little bit. It still was on, but part of it was off, and I just clicked it back, and that was all. And there was nothing like that about it. I don't have a very nice car, honestly. There's a lot of scratch marks. I have a kid that decided to take something and ride on it. I have a bump mark from someone probably backing into me that never did anything about it. I just have not really cared. It's good enough. It doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look great, but I just don't care. These things don't matter. And yeah, everything's okay. So another thing I wanted to mention of how Christ is changing me as another experience. Then a day or two later, I went on a bike ride, and thinking about things again, and it surprises me how God changes me, and how I would maybe react to something and I acted differently this time. I was in the middle of listening to very spiritual music on this bike ride, and I think that's part of it, and there's a lesson to be learned there. As I thought about after, I was like, whoa, it's because I was listening to some good music. So this dog starts running at me on my bike, and it's actually kind of scary in the sense that dogs, they can trip you and then you can fall and you don't know if they're gonna bite at your feet, and that's not fun. Like, it's stressful. And but I'm a person that has a dog, so I try not to judge too much, and I also know to not freak out, and so I try to use my high-pitched voice, like, it's okay. So I try to tell the dog, it's okay, and he's like running up to me. He's a blue heeler, so blue heelers aren't known to be like the nicest, and they're kind of hunting animals. So and yeah, he dodged away, but then I saw his owner just over in the distance at a front door, just standing there and not really doing anything to make the situation better. So my more natural man self in the past probably would have, on one extreme, yell back to him, be like, take care of your dog. I probably would have done that at one point in my life, and many of us probably would. Like, what are you thinking? And being very reactive. I mean, this is how the world works, right? Just tacking after someone and not understanding or knowing, and just being very, very combative. But with or on the other side of even still being more of a natural man, and it just being huffing and puffing afterwards and thinking in our mind, like, what do they think they were doing? Like, just standing there, they didn't care about me. People are terrible right now. I'm so cynical, blah blah blah. I could have been there, and I've been more in that boat. I really have in parts of my life. But this is what happened, is after it happened, I had the instinct. I didn't even think about, I need to be kind. I had the instinct of just waving at him, just because the dog did dart away. Of course, he didn't get me, but it did give me quite a bit of a scare, and not feeling like it's very courteous of other people, knowing that they're just running around. But I do live in the country, and I've gotten a pretty good handle and know-how on how people handle dogs out here. They're not as they don't really hold them down as much. They kind of let them be a little more free sometimes, because we don't have HOA. People kind of do things. It's not always so safe. But I've just kind of got to the point of I'm not going to be that kind of person, but this is kind of how it works out here. People are a little bit less demanding with their animals, but my instinct was to wave and be like, hi, and just not, and I didn't do it like, you know, I did it more like a kind wave and smiled a little bit, I guess, and just kept going. And it's just a small experience again, but in the moment, it washed over me. It's one of those conflicts that could happen that I was so surprised with myself, knowing that actually that was my instinct. I wasn't even trying to do better. So that's where I think we want to be, right? It's not even thinking about it so much, because it's already habit. It's already in our conscious. That's how we operate. So that was really powerful to me. And I was so grateful for Christ changing me, because this isn't me. This is Christ changing me. Knowing, and as I've prayed and think about through things in my day and my own study and how I talk with my family, teach them, these things I'm talking about and trying to input in my brain is now coming out as fruit. That this is finally becoming who I am. It's not just what I read and do. And that even the instinct is kindness, is non-reactive, is looking for the benefit of the doubt in the people. And that's what we need in the times ahead. Holy cow, that's what we need in the times ahead. When things get crazy and the economy probably collapsing. I hope it doesn't, but it's a pretty good chance at some point our economy is going to crash. And why else would the leaders be telling us to have food storage so much for it to never be used? And of course, people have natural disasters, and that might be also something I deal with too. And that could also bring out some of the worst in people when there's a lot of conflict and stress. But we want it to be something that we don't have this decision fatigue, that we are actually using as instinct. We have it just there. It's who we are. It's who we've become. And Christ wants us to become those kinds of people, those Zion people. So that's something these are all experiences. So talked a lot about experiences. Let me share with you a couple more actual teachings here that I've learned in my study lately. I had talked about with my husband, as we were talking about Come Follow Me, and I was General Conference. Sorry, we're talking about General Conference. And there's this guy named, where is it? He does this, it's called God's Favorite. He does this talk called God's Favorite in this past conference in October 2024. And it's by Elder Carl D. Hurst. And I loved what he said about when we have people in our life who don't want God and Christ in their life, or they don't make it a priority, and they're honestly really struggling, and they have a lot of conflicts, and they're really bitter, they're unhappy, but you still talk with them. You know, this can be, for me, this is like siblings, my mom, my dad, Brady, people in my life that I want to bring closer to God. This is how you do it. This is how he said. It's not always telling them and teaching them. Oh, this is our kids too. This isn't just the adults. This is my kids too. The simpleness really made sense to me. So hear me through that. If someone we love is distant from Christ, you yourself first, bring yourself closer to God, to Christ. Work on that. Work on the testimony. Do those things that the prophets, the scriptures tell us all the time. And you know in your heart what you've learned since a kid. Plus all the nuances of what the Spirit tells you. Then go to that person and love them and draw closer to them. So strengthen your relationship this way with God, you and God. Then strengthen your relationship this way with that person you love right here. That's how you will, in the power that you have, bring people closer to Christ. You won't necessarily be able to bring people closer to Christ by just forcing them. You don't. That's not what this gospel is. You are an example, of course, but you're also really doing something. You're strengthening that relationship. You're bringing you're you're bringing substance to the table, maybe what to talk about, and loving them, getting to know them. And I have some siblings that are that way right now that I have to really call them and really keep that open. And it's hard because I'm the one doing it. It's more me making it happen. And the conversation is more about them, what they need. But it's out of love now. Before it was more duty, but it's becoming more and more out of love, that I'm hoping, as I've talked about, that it's my instinct, that I love out of the instinct. And so I thought that was really powerful. I knew I needed to share that, and it's what I'm hoping to do for just my few loved ones that I have on my mind right now, and for you too. I think you'll know who that is. But I had this other idea of what was that? Okay. The best question to ask someone along those same lines, if you're wanting to strengthen that relationship, if they are already a brother and sister in Christ with you, and you're strengthening those bonds as well, those in your life, and those really fulfill me. When I talk with people, that it's not necessarily I'm just trying to bring them closer to Christ. They are then bringing me closer to Christ, because they're inspirational to me. They're an example to me, and it's a little bit more. We're talking about things that we're both really thinking about, talking about right now at that moment together. That we both are on the same brain waves, and that's beautiful. I love that. And I was thinking about, in that same talk, I think he talked about, how has Christ changed you? This is a great question to ask your kids. So that's a simple term or simple phrase we've heard a lot. But if you look at it in the lens of, that is actually the best question to ever ask someone, or the best question to ever have someone ask you. So both sides of it, it's the best question and the best answer to hear is that simple phrase, that wonderful, beautiful testimony building conversation of, how has Christ changed you? And now that it's coming back a little bit more, I think it's because the Lamanites and the Nephites, and it wasn't Come Follow Me. It said in one of those little prompts of how to, dig into it more, one of those paragraphs, the Nephite and the Lamanite people were so divided at one point, but then they became a nation, yes, the Lamanites and the Nephites were so divided, and a lot of them were so in conflict, but then one group of them became so close and became one, and that's when Christ came, and then they were that way for so long after, and they were in a mini millennium. How did Christ change them? How did that happen? And then, of course, it goes on. How is it changing you? How is Christ changing you? Or it changed you, and now, and you, of course, is always changing us. And like I've said, He definitely always changes. So I have one more thing, and one more experience of that, and then I'll be done. Because I'm hitting my hour mark. I should probably not do longer than an hour. But it was that idea of, it's because He changed them. So thus, taking that same pattern of how they became one and had such a beautiful community and unifying society, how did they get it over how did they become from one place to the other? What is this line across? What's the catalyst? What's the change? It's always fascinated me, that concept in anything. How does that change work? How did He change you? Tell me everything. Ask that person who's coming up in your mind right now about that. Ask them that. Dig deeper into it. Where would you be without Him? How do you know it was because of Him? Like, the sky's the limit with these questions. All revolve around this same concept of how He has changed you. And I don't really want to end. It's been such a good talk. Really, it has been. I don't really necessarily want to end on this story, but I didn't share it, so I will. But and I think it's very applicable, right? But I will share maybe even another thing after that, just real quick. But it's the Spirit telling me earlier this week to not make fun of others. I mean, in all good fun, making fun is fun sometimes if they're laughing along with you. But online, it's not always that great because they don't know, and you're making some fun that's probably not in the best spirit that it should be. And the spirit told me and rebuked me, and I felt bad. But I did it as a way to connect with my husband, because he does love to see how some people react. It may or may not be kind of Fall Valley girl kind of characters that have that voice and have the wide brim hats and have very much of a Barbie like aesthetic. I mean, he's very fascinated how that whole culture works with girls being very materialistic and the things that they worry about and care about, and their little antics of being funny online influencers. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, it's not, we all know it, and some of it is fun. But I had seen something, and the way she had talked, and just she said all the things, like the certain phrases and words that the girls use right now, like my vibe, I'm in my era, like, and it was funny to me, but it's not. I did it out of a bad feeling in my heart that I was better, that I was, that she was not smart or whatever. It's not okay. And that's what the Spirit told me. I sent it to him, this video that I saw that I thought he would think was funny. And it wasn't a parody. Sometimes there's those parodies of people being funny and talking that way, but it was actually her being her authentic self. That's what she was sharing something and actually being herself, not trying to make it a funny thing. And I felt like if she was around and she saw me see that and laugh at it when she was actually trying to be sincere, she would not be happy. She would be sad. The Spirit told me this, or had me feel that. And after I did that, I told Brady, I'm sorry I sent that to you. I shouldn't have. So that's where I think we all could do a little bit better at. Maybe I still have a lot of repenting. I like to have humor, and my husband and we kind of have that humor in our life, but we have it in all sorts of ways. But maybe that one we don't need to have, and a lot of us don't need to have. And I've told my kids this a lot, actually, that and if they're laughing but someone's crying, something's wrong. It's a lot of times like they'll do something and then it hurts someone's feelings over here, but that person over here is kind of laughing about it. It's like, so I had to point out to them, do you see the disconnect right here? There's something wrong here. You know that, you can feel that, make it right. So I'm doing that online sometimes when I make fun. That's not okay. And so small things that he's changing me, and I'm just so grateful. So maybe that's how I'll end it, because it is positive. It was between standing up for myself. It was between the story of the dog. It was between me getting hit by a deer. And it's between even this story now of not participating in online making fun, even if it doesn't affect anyone, but just talking with my husband and I about it. Or even if I was by myself and I saw it and I laughed about it. It doesn't provide the heart to be ripe and ready for Zion and having good people. I'm so passionate about it. I'm so amped up right now because it's so important right now with the elections, right? There's a lot of big feelings going on, and it's coming closer into my circle and to my husband's circle, and it's hard. A lot of people get hurt feelings over this stupid election sometimes. I do believe we should vote. I do believe there's a lot at stake. I do believe there's a lot going on, and this is a good country, but it is not for the reason of tearing us apart at the heart of brother to brother, sister to sister. So I hope that you will find time to figure out what it is for you in those little moments that will build up to a big change for you on creating you into a Zion person. Thank you for listening for that long talk. So I appreciate it. Hope you have a good day.